Here we find Ramkrishna reconciling the Bhakti Marg with the Gnan Marg, the Dvait with the Advait. He is now reconciling various strands of Hinduism in one life. In one life, he is able to move from one to the other without any problem at all. Kind of literally, whiz through all the variety of different pathways the Hindus are promoting, variety of different bhakti marks he practices and immediately attains its conclusion successfully. The story has to continue. You see, this personality has come not only to reconcile the various strands of Hinduism, he has come to reconcile various religions too. Now we come across another personality comes to the Dakshineshwar temple. This person is a Sufi, a Muslim. In that particular temple, Muslims were welcome. They were fed, given separate food, and they were allowed to stay in the guest house there. So an unusual person, a Sufi, arrives on the scene, and Ramkrishna is very astute. In no time he catches his attention is drawn by this individual, because he sees kind of culmination of that particular practice in his life very visibly. So he went to him, a very guileless person. He said, "I want to learn about Islam. I wish to learn about your tradition." The person says, "Sure." Now these are the rules of Islam. This is what we study. We study the Quran, and we worship. We pray so many times a day. We eat this kind of food. Ramkrishna said, "I'll follow that." Now, whatever he wanted to do, he would achieve very fast. And somehow, in all the different parts of the story, I find that he is able to achieve his target in literally 3 days. Anything he starts, finishes, comes to conclusion within 3 days. So there's a magic number, 3 days. So for 3 days, this Ramakrishna doesn't visit the mother goddess. He gives us the idea of being Hindu completely. He wears a lungi. He's sitting out with the Sufi guy outside, praying so many times a day, eating the Muslim food and everything, and behaving like a Muslim. Couldn't be bothered about the Hindu deities. 3 days he spends like that. At the end of 3 days, these are his words. He said, "I had a majestic experience. I saw a person with a long beard appear in front of me, and I don't know who that is. But then immediately my mind went from the idea of God with form into God without form and merged into that. And that experience that I had is no different from the experience I have when I follow the Hindu tradition. In 3 days, I achieved that." And this is unusual, because there is nobody in the history of mankind who has been able to successfully practice variety of different pathways within one tradition, let alone tradition of other religions. Here is the beginning. The story doesn't stop there. I told you, he is here to reconcile vast number of different approaches in spirituality. In a short time, he comes across another person who is saying, Shambhu Malik. He says, "I'd like to study the Bible." So Ramakrishna says, "Fine, I want to learn about Christ and these Christian people." So he would visit his house, and that gentleman, Shambhu Malik, would read through the story of Bible. And Ramakrishna, even though he disliked the word sin, is quite offended by the word sin, just sits through and listens to this story of the Bible, listens. Again in 3 days, this thing like magic happens in his life. 3 days is the magic time. While he is sitting in one of these devotees' house, there is an image of baby Christ with Madonna on the wall, and he's staring at it. And that image seems to have come alive. And from it he sees rays entering his body, entering his system. He feels very charged up, very unusual experience. For these 3 days, again, he doesn't visit the temple, doesn't look at the Hindu deities, completely ignores them. On the 3rd day, when he's walking in the little forest in the north of the temple, while he's sitting there, he suddenly sees a person, a white man, walking towards him. And he says, "This is strange. Who is this foreigner coming towards me?" As he comes closer, his heart springs into joy. He said, "I know who is this. And this is the man who gave his life for the welfare of humanity, who sacrificed his life for the welfare of humanity. This is Jesus." He said, "Ah." And as he said that, that man came very close to him, embraced and disappeared into him, inside him. If I tell the story to Christians, they will be very worried. Because this means that Christ is contained in Ramakrishna. But I have done this story. He enters his body and disappears into him. The same happened every time he had any spiritual experience within the Hindu tradition, whether he saw Ram or he saw Krishna, these personalities would come and enter his system. And this happened. And there's something very unusual about this story. I tell you why. Somebody was doing research whether Jesus is a historic figure or a made up figure, because there is an argument going on in the theological circles that Jesus is possibly not a real character but made up. There is a real debate going on. Now see, those people approached me, I'm telling you, and say, we like the story of Ramakrishna because he validates Jesus. He says there was a person called Jesus. Do you know to what extent he validates Jesus? He said, I can describe Jesus, but Jesus, he was a Jew, and the Jews have a kind of nose which is kind of bent like that, like in the eagle's beak. But I can tell you, this Jesus I saw had a stubby nose, but he was handsome. He said he didn't look ugly, but he had a stubby nose, not a pointed nose like this. And you see, he's describing Jesus, and there is no historic record. But the various versions of Christianity, one version talks of Jesus not with a kind of Jewish nose, but with a flat nose. I'm just telling you what has been recorded. Take it as you like. So in one life we see a variety of different approaches visible in the story of one life. Now you see, suppose as a devout Hindu, somebody who is in love with this Ramakrishna, talks about Ramakrishna like this, you might say, well, sounds good and okay. One of the most astute historians in the Western world, called Sir Arnold Toynbee, says the following about Sri Ramakrishna, because they had looked through the story of Ramakrishna, and these are his words. He says, the comprehensive level of spiritual experience visible in the story of Ramakrishna is incomparable to anybody in the history of mankind. In the life of this one personality, we see such vast variation of spiritual experience reconciled, and this is something something that has not been achieved by any human being in the history of mankind. This is the highest tribute anybody can pay, and this is what comes out through somebody very famous in the Western world called Sir Arnold Toynbee. Again, you see, this is not an exclamation of a kind of expression of kind of my personal devotion. The reason why this is crucial in the modern times is this. An issue can arise that, look, you are talking that the old religions are good, but how do you know they lead you to the same destination? How can you be sure? Let me put it in a pointed manner. One of the examples given in pluralism means there are many pathways to the same goal is this. They said that, well, it's like, different people climbing the top of the mountain using different pathways. This is what different religions are like. They're all reaching toward the top, but using different pathways to climb the same mountain. Metaphor. And this metaphor can be challenged, and I have been challenged, saying that how do you know it's the same mountain? Maybe they're climbing up different mountains. How can you be sure? It's a serious challenge, philosophic challenge. How can you be sure? Pluralism. Suppose I say, you see, all of us, different religions, we are trying to come out of this door, but we have different direction. Because look, if you point to the door, all of you will have different direction, because a different starting point. That's what religions are. Different pathways to reach to the same destination, come out of the same door. But you may say, Jay, this is an interesting thing, but I can give you a different metaphor. There are lots of other doors. Maybe people are using different doors to come out. How do you know it's the same door? Same issue. So when you use a metaphor, it can be challenged. And this is how pluralism can be challenged. And do you know where's the resolution? Not through intellectualizing. The resolution lies with this man. This is the only proof of pluralism. The only validity given to pluralism comes by this person. And not me. Sir Arnold Toynbee is telling you that. This is the proof of pluralism, that we are coming out, reaching out to the same destination. Look, let me show you. This is Sri Ramakrishna studied Islam without any hesitation. He studied Christianity without any hesitation and hit the high note very quickly within 3 days. He looked at Jainism, commented on Buddhism, on Sikhism. He has touched, if you like, the variety of different expressions of spirituality in his life, experienced them, made them experiential, not intellectual. In one life, the variety of different forms that the Hindus offer for making spiritual progress. Of course, the two major ones, Bhakti and Gnan, very visible in his life. This idea of relating to ultimate reality as Mother Goddess, relating to ultimate reality as a little child, relating to ultimate reality in a variety of different forms, visible in his own life, not stopping there. Relating to your essential nature as the spirit, Atman. Again, you may think these are in contradiction. Again, reconcile in one life. Can move from here to there in no time, with a click of a finger. One lifetime. All of these reconcile, kind of tied together in a seamless manner, makes religion come alive. This is the modern vision of religion. You see, whenever this kind of super personalities appear with us, they present the ideas, that they kind of invoke the ideas that are relevant in our times. They do not talk about antiquated religion, they talk about the role of religion in the times that we live in. This person has already offered the reconciliation between different religious ideas in one lifetime, brought into reality through experience, not through intellect, through experience, first-hand experience, reaching the same destination. So, there is one little story I must tell you. I am going ahead a little bit, fast forwarding a little bit. When this picture was taken, let me tell you the story about this picture. This guy did not like to be photographed. He was very shy. He would not like anybody to take his picture. And one day he was sitting in front of the Radha Krishna temple in Dakshineshwar, and some devotees brought in a photographer. They said, how do we photograph him? I said, easiest way, mention the word God to him and he goes into meditation. Then we can capture him. And this is what they do. They say, talk about God. If you went near him and mentioned the word God, Ishwar, anything, any devotee, you mention any name, he flies off into highest meditation. Immediately, instantaneously, you can't stop him. So they start talking about God and off he goes. He's sitting cross-legged and goes into meditation. And while he's going into meditation, loses body consciousness, but somehow he is not perhaps stable, he's beginning to topple over this way. This is a true story behind this picture. He's beginning to topple over. So the photographer ran near him, and with his hand he tried to lift this part of his body, this part, the chin, tried to lift him up. And the photographer, got a shock. Do you know why? As he tried to do that, he seemed to actually lift the whole body. It was light as a feather. This is real. He was shocked. He said, I don't know. They say in the Tantra, they say that you can become lighter than a feather. This guy is like that, So the moment he started, and he just lifted him a little bit and quickly took this picture. This is a picture of Ramakrishna in meditation. First time an image of a God-man. First time, not an artist's impression, a real black and white photograph taken of a God-man in the deepest of meditation. And when this picture, this man was weird, this Ramakrishna was weird fellow. I can say so because I'm close enough to him. He will excuse me. When this picture was shown to him, again you may smile, do what you like. He looked at the picture and said, this picture will be worshipped in many homes in days to come. It will not only be worshipped by the Hindus, but a lot of white people will be worshipping this image. You see, when he said it, people are saying, he's lost his marbles. Now this old man in this little temple, his picture go to Western world and they'll be worshipping him. Let me tell you, in our lifetimes, you will see this image becoming very universal, very visible. I'm very pleased this image is here, because through this media, it will already go into many homes. This Ramakrishna had said, if you have shed a tear in the name of God, in this life or even any previous life, you will come across him, because he comes with the tickets. If you shed tears in the name of God, you will come across this Ramakrishna. So what I'm telling you, all of you, including the viewers, you are all crybabies. You must have cried for God at some stage in your life. That's why you are hearing the story of this Ramakrishna. Spirituality vibrant, relevant in our own times, visible, exciting and real. Religion becomes real when you study the story of Ramakrishna. You see, as Swami Vivekananda said, it is very difficult. You see the breadth of vision of this individual, tremendous broad ideas of spirituality, most, as Arnold Toynbee said, the broadest you have seen in the history of mankind. But his depth is something that nobody has been able to measure. So what I am doing is really a very puny, attempt to try and measure its depth. What's it like? You go to the seaside, there's the infinite ocean, the huge ocean. And we come with our little pitchers, a little vessel with which we fill the sea water. Somebody has just got a spoon, someone's got a slightly bigger bowl, somebody may have a large drum. You see, when we try and fathom this Ramakrishna, we don't actually succeed in doing that. We show our own limitations, our own capacity to understand spirituality. People don't realize that. So whenever we try and pass judgment on this personality, we are actually showing our own depth, not his depth, our depth. And I'm not saying this, Swami Vivekananda said that. He says, I am struggling to fathom the depth of this personality. So even though it may appear, kind of supernatural stories, the material is very genuine. There is no make-believe here. It is serious stuff. This is religion in our life, in our times, coming alive. And you see, all the individuals who enter the story of Ramakrishna, in a way, relate to all of us, because we can relate to these characters, these personalities. And as we go on, more and more vibrant personalities will enter the system. I was still not even touched on 16 disciples, the apostles of Sri Ramakrishna. In this session, they will not appear, but in the next session, they will appear. They'll make the grand entrance, and you'll see how dramatic they are. Each one was an individual, highly unique, and yet expresses the kind of aspiration that we all possess. And how do we relate to the idea of spirituality when you got the doorway, this personality which allows us to gleam through and understand spirituality at a deeper level? And this is why it's such a lovely story. Let me carry on. Now, what was the state of Calcutta in his time? Let me tell you. Or what was the state of India in his time? India was struggling. It had two invasions, the Muslim invasion and then the European invasion. It was losing its integrity, its own self-confidence. It was all at a low ebb. And the broad ideas of Hinduism were about to be thrown out, jettisoned in his own lifetime. This man is blissfully unaware of all this politics, but the ideas were being kicked out. And two major movements sprang up in India. One is called the Arya Samaj and the other is called the Brahmo Samaj in Bengal. Both these movements in a way were trying to appease the Abrahamic vision of a religion. They both said idea of God with form is a mistake. So all your Ram, Krishna, Mother Goddess should be abandoned. We should take their images and let them float down the river Ganga, let them go. We must go back to the Vedas and the idea of God not possible with form. This was being adopted very fast throughout India because these two movements were spreading very fast, Arya Samaj and the Brahmo Samaj. And now we see this man, this priest of the Kali temple interacting with the Brahmo Samaj, and you see what happens next. Very unusual is this story. And I told you, one man established in God realization can not only move mountains, he can climb 100 Himalayas and get through without any difficulty. Why? Because religion is a matter of experience. Whenever you come across individuals talking about spirituality from experience, show respect, friends, because that is the heart of religion. It is through experience that this becomes valid. Otherwise, it's all make-believe, it is all speculation. With reality, experience gives it true reality. Now we see the story. First of all, let me just tell you something more about this Ramakrishna. He has now kind of already practiced variety of different pathways to spirituality, including other religions. And it succeeded very fast, literally within 3 days. In some cases, instantaneous success. So the field is ready now. It is time to promote this broader vision into the greater society. And this is the next stage of the story. Now, this Ramakrishna, whenever he finds any individual in Calcutta who is sincere about religion, serious about spirituality, will go to visit him. They don't come to visit him, he goes to visit them. Swami Dayananda Saraswati appeared on the stage in Calcutta at this time. Dayananda Saraswati didn't go looking for Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna went looking for Dayananda Saraswati. Keshav Chandra Sen, who is the leader of the Brahmo Samaj, very popular, can draw 100,000 people, crowds come to listen to him. He's a fantastic orator. All people kind of crowd around him. Nobody has heard the name of this priest of Dakshineshwar. Who is this Ramakrishna? Unheard of. Everybody crowds around Keshav Chandra Sen and this huge movement called the Brahmo Samaj, the modern face of Hinduism, which is discarding the idea of God with form, formless God only. Everybody flocking to him. This is kind of rational, positive way of thinking about religion in his time. And do you think he's going to bother this Keshav Chandra Sen to come and visit Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar temple, this priest, illiterate priest? No way. But this Ramakrishna won't let him off. He goes to visit him. First time, when he heard that he's living about 2 miles away from the Dakshineshwar temple, he told his Bhaniya, Hriday, come Hriday, let's go and visit this God man. He likes to suss them out. And this is how they go. First Hriday, look at the guileless manner of this man. First Hriday will go in and announce, he says, my mama, my uncle, maternal uncle, wishes to come and see you. He'll send him ahead of him. Wishes to see you. My mama spends his time thinking about God, and he has heard that you also spend your time thinking about God, so he wants to interact with you. That's a lovely language. It's a simple language. Not that it's a God-realized personality of super, caliber. This is how he introduces mama. And then mama comes and starts interacting. And now Keshav Chandra Sen and the Brahmo devotees are looking at this man, unusual fellow. They're not that impressed. Who is this man? And then we see when Ramakrishna opens his mouth, the atmosphere falls silent, everybody's captivated. You see, a person who talks of spirituality from experience has got such a certain power in his voice, certain sweetness that permeates, that enters the system very fast. So he starts talking. And then, as soon as he says, Keshav Chandra Sen's devotee says, Keshav Babu, you must respond. But this Keshav is no ordinary devotee. He realizes what he is dealing with. And do you know what he says? He says, shush, I can't lecture in front of this man. It is like selling, these are his words, needles to the blacksmith. They already have enough needles. You don't do that. You listen, you don't give, you don't lecture him, you listen to him. So everybody keeps silent. And do you know what's the first conversation? The first conversation, the Brahmo devotee says, God cannot be both with and without form. Can't be like that. True. Straight philosophic challenge. And this Ramakrishna, this rustic Ramakrishna, using the simplest metaphor. And remember, this is the metaphor used now in GCSE level, in Hinduism textbook, in A level. This is where I pinched it from. Plagiarism. This is where it comes. Keshav Chandra Sen dialogue. Just at that time, ice was being brought from the North Pole, with large steamers were drifting, brought to Calcutta. So ice was visible in Calcutta. So this is the example given by Sri Ramakrishna. He said, oh Keshav, listen to me. The same God is both formless as well as with form. It is the love of the devotee that freezes the formless God into the form of his desire. It is like ice and water, my boy, ice and water. The same thing which is formless and underpins this reality. When the devotee has tremendous love, that devotee, don't underestimate the power of the devotee. He freezes the formless God. He reduces the formless God to take on a form of his choice and play with him and interact with him. How can he say that? Because he was doing it day and night. With the mother goddess, with all these various forms of gods and goddesses, he was playing with them. He was generating them. The love he had brought this mother goddess with form and play and interact with her all his life. So he could talk like that. And those people muttered, sounds very interesting. And then Ramakrishna, before leaving, says something very interesting. He said, all you guys, your tails have not dropped off, but Keshav's tail has dropped off. It's a very rude thing to go and tell the Brahmo leader that your tail has dropped off. And everybody started laughing, a bit worried, and said, is he being rude to our leader? He's telling his tail has dropped off. What do you mean? And Keshav said, shush, let him answer. So Ramakrishna said, look, let me tell you. I looked at all your faces here. You see, let me give an example. It's like tadpoles. When tadpoles mature, they shed their tails. They can live in the water as well as climb out of water and go on land. This Keshav is the only one who is successful in meditation. The rest of you are just basically pretending. His tail has dropped off. He is both of this world as well as of the other world. He has experienced spirituality. He is the only one. See, this man is able to suss out instantaneously because he comes with that caliber. Anybody goes near him, he can read him inside out. He knows his capacity, his past and his future. He told Keshav, your tail has dropped off. You are the only one successful in meditation. Of course, it rings true because Keshav knows. So now we see this linkage between Ramakrishna and Keshav Chandra Sen and the Brahmo Samaj. A very interesting dialogue and relationship developing. Now Keshav comes to visit Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar. And from time to time, it is very rich and of course very famous. He takes a boat and then they invite Ramakrishna to go on the boat and go on a little tour on the river Ganga. And while they are doing it, they talk of high philosophic things. And who is speaking? Not Keshav, Ramakrishna. And he listens. He is strongly influenced. Because Keshav is influenced, slowly all the other people in Calcutta came to know about Ramakrishna because Keshav would say, this is reality, spiritually enlightened personality. So Keshav is now pointing a finger at Ramakrishna saying he's enlightened, even though he's telling him he's lost his tail. But this is becoming visible in the story of Ramakrishna and Keshav Chandra Sen. So the relation becomes closer. And you see, he's in a way influencing this major movement to recognize its limitation, to just simply say God with form is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. This is what Ramakrishna insists on. And of course he wins his argument because he's talking from experience. It's not make-believe. It's visible. The story continues. At the same time, Ramakrishna meets, you see, this is also important. In the Hindu tradition, we have got various kind of categories of personalities. You've got the bhaktas, we've got the pandits. Now the pandits will automatically start interfering. This is normal for them. This is their job. So they want to analyze Ramakrishna and what he's saying. So Ramakrishna comes across two kinds of pandits after he kind of interact with the Keshav Chandra Sen. Two kinds of pandits kind of interact with Ramakrishna. There are the genuine ones. You know what are the genuine pandits? There's somebody called Padma Lochan who visits Ramakrishna. The moment he sees Ramakrishna, he says, I was studied cartload of books, shastras. I want to throw them in the Ganga. You are talking from experience. What are these books? They are just scribbles. A pandit talking like that about his shastras. You are real. Please tell me, teach me. He meets these kind of pandits. And these are very just, very kind of orthodox pandits, Brahmins. One day, one of these pandits was told, look, Ramakrishna is inviting you to come to the Kali temple for a particular function, and the Kali temple belongs to the lower caste. Would you come? And this pandit says, if Ramakrishna tells me to go and eat in the Bhangi's house, the outcast house, I'll happily go with him. Anywhere he takes me to hell, I'll go, I'll follow him. This is a real pandit.